The alarms were screaming across Pelican Bay Prison that cold October night. Red lights flashed along the walls and guards rushed through the corridors shouting, "Lockdown! Inmate on the run!" The cameras spun, searching for movement. But somehow, no one could find him. Inside one of the most secure prisons in America, an inmate named Michael Ray had done the impossible. He had slipped out of his cell without tripping a single alarm, crawled through a maintenance shaft no man was supposed to fit in, and was now somewhere outside the maximum security block, vanished into the fog. The guards stood frozen at the security monitors, watching static where his cell camera had gone black just minutes before. How did a man escape Pelican Bay, the place built so no one ever could? The sound of helicopters filled the night sky as the warden barked orders, his voice trembling with disbelief. "Find him. Now," he yelled. But deep inside the prison walls, far from the chaos, Michael Ray was already making his next move, one that would shock the entire country. And that's when it happened. One of the searchlights flickered and landed on something near the outer fence, a figure crouching low. Was it him? The guards rushed toward it only to find cliffhanger, to keep the audience hooked. 3 weeks earlier, Michael Ray sat quietly in his small concrete cell, staring at the wall. He had been in Pelican Bay for 8 years, convicted of armed robbery and assault. The place was meant to break people, but Michael wasn't like most inmates. He didn't talk much. He didn't fight. He just watched. Every detail. Every sound. Every routine. He noticed how the guards changed shifts every 8 hours. He learned which cameras had blind spots when the hallway lights flickered. He even knew when the food carts rolled through the gates and which maintenance man left keys hanging too close to reach. To the guards, Michael was harmless, just another quiet inmate serving time. But inside his mind he was building a plan, one piece at a time. It started small. He traded a pack of cigarettes for a tiny screwdriver. Then he made friends with a janitor who cleaned the isolation wing. The man didn't know it, but every small thing he said about maintenance doors and air vents was a clue to Michael's puzzle. Every night, as the prison lights dimmed, Michael lay awake, tracing his plan in his mind like a map. He knew it would take perfect timing, patience, and a little luck. But if it worked, he'd walk out of Pelican Bay alive and free. One morning the guards noticed something strange. A vent cover near Michael's cell looked slightly loose. But when they checked, everything seemed normal. They didn't know that behind that vent, a tunnel was beginning to form. That same night, a storm rolled in, thunder shaking the walls. Michael took it as a sign. The noise would cover his work. He began prying open the vent again, heart pounding, every second counting. Then suddenly he heard footsteps. A guard was coming closer. Michael froze. The sound of heavy boots echoed closer, each step louder than the last. His hands trembled as he held the vent cover halfway open. One wrong move and everything he'd been planning for months would be gone. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness, sweeping across the cell bars. "Ray, you awake?" the guard's voice called out. It was Officer Bennett, the same man who usually checked cells before lights out. Michael quickly slid the vent cover back in place and turned toward the small window in his cell. "Yeah, I can't sleep," he said calmly, his voice steady. Bennett shined the light inside, eyes scanning the floor, the bed, the walls. For a moment, Michael thought he was caught. The beam lingered right on the vent, barely inches from where a streak of dust had been wiped clean. But then Bennett yawned. "Well, try to get some rest. Long day tomorrow." When the footsteps faded away, Michael exhaled shakily, sweat rolling down his forehead. He waited a full hour before touching the vent again. Then quietly he resumed loosening the screws. Behind it was a narrow shaft filled with dust and pipes. It was so small he had to squeeze his shoulders to fit through. Night after night, he worked in secret, crawling further through the duct each time. He timed everything, the guard patrols, the camera blind spots, even the noise from nearby inmates that covered his movements. He discovered the shaft connected to a forgotten maintenance corridor, one that hadn't been used in years. From there, a service tunnel ran under the prison yard toward the old power building outside the main walls. If he could reach that tunnel, he might find an exit. Days passed and his cell looked the same. But behind that wall, the path to freedom was growing longer. Then fate helped him again. A new inmate named Marcus was placed in the cell next to his. Marcus was loud, always shouting or banging on his door. The guards hated him, which meant they barely paid attention to Michael anymore. "Hey Ray," Marcus whispered one night. "You ever think about getting out of this hole?" Michael gave a small grin. Every single day. The two began to talk, quietly sharing ideas. Marcus had once worked construction before prison, and he understood tunnels, pipes, and old blueprints. Together they pieced the rest of the escape plan. But Michael didn't tell him everything. He couldn't risk it. Finally, one stormy evening the time came. Rain lashed against the windows as lightning flashed over the yard. The power flickered twice, just like Michael had prayed it would. He unscrewed the vent completely, pushed it aside and motioned to Marcus. "This is it," he whispered. They crawled through the shaft, their elbows scraping metal, the air thick with dust. The prison groaned around them, thunder echoing above. They reached the maintenance corridor, hearts racing. For the first time in 8 years, Michael smelled the wet earth of freedom. But then, Marcus slipped. His boot hit a metal pipe, sending a loud clang that echoed through the walls. Instantly the hallway lights flickered on. A voice shouted through a nearby intercom, "Movement detected in Block D." Michael's stomach dropped. Sirens began to wail. Red lights filled the corridor as doors slammed shut around them. He looked at Marcus, who was frozen in fear. "Run," Michael hissed, shoving him forward. But as they turned a corner, 2 guards appeared at the far end of the hallway, flashlights raised, shouting for them to stop. Michael's mind raced. He spotted a dark service hatch to the left, barely open, maybe wide enough for one man to fit. Without thinking, he shoved Marcus toward it. "Go," he yelled. "I'll hold them off." Marcus hesitated, then vanished through the hatch. Michael spun around, just as a flashlight beam blinded him and a voice screamed, "Get on the ground." Michael threw his hands up, blinking against the blinding beam of the flashlight. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. "Don't shoot," he shouted, backing up slowly. The guards moved in, shouting orders, 2 from the front, 1 coming in from behind. He had seconds to think. Then, like a lightning strike, he noticed something, a loose wire dangling from the ceiling. The storm outside made the power unstable. Every few seconds the lights flickered. And when they did, the guard's night vision was momentarily blinded. Michael waited, timing it perfectly. When the next flash of lightning came, he lunged toward the nearest guard, knocking the flashlight out of his hand. The beam hit the floor and rolled away. Another flash, darkness again. Michael darted toward the open hatch Marcus had crawled through. "Stop him," one of the guards yelled, but it was too late. Michael dove into the narrow space and disappeared into the blackness. He slid down a sloped metal tunnel that smelled of rust and rainwater, landing hard on the ground below. The sound of boots and radios echoed above him. "He's in the maintenance shaft. Seal it off." Michael scrambled through the darkness, crawling through puddles, his breath ragged. Somewhere ahead he could hear the faint sound of wind, open air. He followed it, praying it led outside. After what felt like forever, the tunnel widened, leading to a rusty grate. Beyond it he saw the night sky, storm clouds rolling over the forest outside Pelican Bay. Freedom was just inches away. He kicked the grate once, twice, and it gave way with a screech. He pulled himself out into the cold rain, gasping as the wind hit his face. For the first time in 8 years there were no walls, no guards, no bars, just the open world before him. But his victory didn't last long. In the distance, floodlights from the prison perimeter scanned the forest. Sirens wailed louder than before. A helicopter roared overhead, its spotlight slicing through the darkness. Michael dove into the mud, crawling beneath a fallen log. The searchlight swept right over him but didn't stop. He lay there, soaked and shivering, staring at the sky. He couldn't stop now. Somewhere in the woods, Marcus might still be out there too. Michael didn't trust him, but he knew he'd need help to survive the manhunt. Hours passed as he crawled through the forest, avoiding patrols and hiding in ditches. The rain finally stopped and the dawn light started to rise. He could see the distant outline of a small town, maybe a few miles away. He stumbled toward it, exhausted but determined. His prison uniform was torn and muddy, but he didn't care. Freedom was close enough to taste. As he reached the edge of the woods, he heard the faint hum of a truck engine. A delivery driver was pulling off the road to check his tires. Michael crouched low, watching him. This could be his chance to hitch a ride and disappear for good. He waited until the man stepped away from the truck, then crept forward, slipping into the back of the cargo bed beneath a tarp. The driver never noticed. The truck rumbled to life, rolling down the road toward the town. Michael lay still, hidden beneath the tarp, his heart thudding in his chest. He was free for now. Back at Pelican Bay, chaos ruled. The warden slammed his fist on the desk. "How does a man escape a Supermax facility?" he barked. A guard stammered, "We're still searching, sir. We believe he had help." But out there on the open highway, Michael Ray looked out through a small tear in the tarp, watching the prison fade into the distance. A small smile crossed his face. He had outsmarted Pelican Bay, the fortress no one could break. Still, deep down he knew the chase wasn't over. The FBI, state police and prison guards were already on the hunt. And somewhere Marcus might be plotting his own next move, one that could change everything. For now though, Michael Ray was gone, just a ghost in the rain.